Let's look at the total for a hot second, because I think this is one that I am not completely sold on, because I think it could go either way. If you
Okay.
believe in both these defenses being a little down, we just said this whole spiel about Kirk Cousins being at least able to move the ball. The Eagles' secondary is not as strong
Hmm.
as it was last season. They lost some guys to free agency, got a couple guys hurt. They still have Darius Slay,
Hmm.
but still maybe the Vikings can score some points, even though in the red zone is where Kirk Cousins usually struggles. But also the Eagles, I think, can score some points here. So 49 seems like a high number, especially since we have seen primetime unders really be the play, hitting
Yeah.
it over a 60% clip over the last 4 seasons. Do you have a leaning on a total?
I think you're absolutely spot on here. The under is the way to go. And A, because Kirk Cousins may struggle down the stretch. B, again, the Eagles' offense last week against the Patriots was not great. It really wasn't. They broke out of the gate super quick, couple touchdowns, and then they really slowed down. Only had 251 total yards. And also remember, the Eagles are breaking in new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. So it may take them a while to get everyone on the same page offensively. So you take all those factors into effect along with the trends. And I like the under as well, Chelsea.
Yeah, I think there are a few things we like, just not a side. I think that is where
Yeah.
I can't really put my money on. But just to recap all the plays we like, kind of like the Eagles' first half team total over 12 and a half, 13 and a half if you can go find that number. Jenks likes Justin Jefferson, anytime touchdown. And then finally, your girl will be betting on Kirk Cousins to throw a pick in prime time. Duh, it's only minus 115. Yeah, I'll
Do
take
it.
that play every single day of the week. So they got to figure something out before tonight.
Even the Vikings agree it's not cheating. If he had stolen the playbook, that's one thing. But if he figures it out, that's part of the game. Also, this
Yeah.
is like, I just can't believe that Tampa won 20-17. It was this close. This is like someone saying, hey, man, I'm giving you all the answers to this test. All right, here you go. And then you take the test. How'd you do on that test, man? Got a C. How? You had all the answers. So you passed, barely. But maybe I'm being too hard on Baker. It is sort of impressive. He's been playing the game for a long time. I also think that this is probably more common than we think.
Well, I think it's similar to baseball. Just
Mm-hmm.
because you know what's coming does not mean you automatically are going to hit a home run. Like, there still has to be some skill there. Like, if you knew a fastball was coming from a major league pitcher, like, I think most people still couldn't hit a home run. Like, it is an advantage, but it's not a gimme. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes. No, that's true. That's very true. There's still professionals on the field, so I get that. We'll see what happens this week. And since the Vikings play tonight, do you take anything from this? Does this make you worry about the Vikings tonight playing the Eagles? That Jalen Hurts, who is a much better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, might figure things out?
Well, I think that now that it's out in the public, Minnesota will probably try to cover their bases.
Yeah.
What would have happened if Baker Mayfield didn't say this publicly? Like, would they still be doing the same thing and just be sitting there scratching their heads, be like,
Yeah.
I don't know why people keep beating us in the second half of games? Like, at least now they're aware of it.
What I would do is this is what I would do. I'm Baker Mayfield, and I say, I'm going to text Jalen Hurts and say, here are all the signs you need to know. Here's all the information that you need. And then I'm Baker, and I get a friend of mine, and I say, hey, I can't place this bet. Lay it all. Lay all the points, put all the money on the Eagles. Jalen's going to rip them apart and cash in, baby.
Yeah, but again, I don't think it's like that simple. Like, the defense is still like reactionary, and like obviously if they're running a certain look, you
Mm-hmm.
can do a play that goes well against that. That's why
Sure.
quarterbacks call audibles, and some of the best in the game are very good at doing that. But we'll see. I would imagine the Vikings are aware of it, and they will at least try to make things a little more difficult to read. When you see the spread, do you like the Eagles here, or does the 6.5 points make you a little nervous?
I do. I like them, but I can understand why people would be apprehensive, right? Like, this game's going to come down to who does a better job of overcoming their injuries. You look at the Minnesota side, you have the offensive line challenges. Bradbury is going to be out at center. Dorsal, I think, is still, questionable at guard, right? So the interior of their offensive line, very vulnerable. And then, of course, on the other side, that's the Eagles' strength. You got Jalen Carter, they just drafted out of the first round. 8 pressures in his first NFL start, right? So he looks like he's going to be everything they expected, from a top 10 pick there with Carter. So they're going to be able to pressure Cousins. Now, can they keep Cousins upright? That's going to be the key here, because if they can, he's going to be able to exploit the Eagles secondary. James Bradbury out. The middle of the field was a big problem against the New England Patriots. Nakobe Dean goes on IR, so they're kind of patching some people in there to try and make it happen. But, the best way to disguise a struggling secondary is the pass rush. And I think that's really going to be the key here for this Eagles defense. And I just think primetime home opener. I was at the game in week 2 last year when they hosted this same Minnesota Vikings team and won 24-7 in a game that, really wasn't all that competitive. I just think that, the atmosphere, short week, having to prepare for the Eagles, I think it's going to be tough for Minnesota. But I like the over on the total too, but I do think the Eagles can cover this number.
We also have some fighting words amongst us here at the Daily Tip when it comes to this Penn State game. I think we're a little torn because Penn State, Jenks is all over them. All over them. Laying 14 against Illinois on the road here. But some of us think that this might be a more difficult game than it initially looks like. So which side of the coin do you fall on when it comes to Penn State and Illinois?
Well, for those watching on Twitch and YouTube, you can see the hat that is on my head and the Nittany Lion logo. And so I am torn between the heart and the head here. The head tells me, yeah, they're 2 touchdowns better than Illinois. Drew Aller's going to go out there and look like the stud that he's been so far. He's got weapons littering the field on offense. This defense is just as good, if not better, than last year's. For all those reasons and more, even on the road, in the Big Ten, against a team that, isn't as talented, yeah, they're going to cover the 2.5, or the 2 touchdowns and half, the hook. But then my heart comes back into play, and it reminds me, hey, Chris, remember when you thought you'd have a nice fall afternoon a couple years ago and go back to the old alma mater for homecoming and take the kids to a game and the wife, and you stood in the freezing rain for 4.5 hours during 9 overtimes and watched Penn State lose to Illinois in a game that they should have won several times over? Yes, I do remember that, Self, and now I'm dialoguing with myself, guys, right here in front of you. And I always wait for the other shoe to drop. I think ultimately I'm going to let my head dictate this one, which is Penn State is that much better equipped team for a moment like this than they were a few years ago. Drew Aller is that much better a quarterback. No offense to Packers backup Sean Clifford, but he is that much better a quarterback than anything they've had in a long time. I do think they cover 14.5 on the road at Illinois tomorrow.